residential tech talk, lighting specialist to our residential tech.
Welcome to Residential Tech Talks. I'm Jeremy Glowacki, Executive Editor of Residential Tech Today. On this week's podcast, Mitchell Klein joins us from Boston, where he is Executive Director of the Z-Wave Alliance, the standards development organization dedicated to advancing the smart home and Z-Wave technology. Deployed in more than 100 million products sold worldwide, the Z-Wave protocol is an interoperable, wireless, RF-based communications technology designed specifically for control, monitoring, and status reading applications in residential and light commercial environments. Our guest today, who holds the record for the most appearances on this podcast, is a former CEDIA president, a CEDIA Lifetime Award recipient, and most importantly, my friend. Mitchell Klein, thanks for joining us today to talk about the latest Z-Wave developments and smart home tech trends.
Hey, so great to be back. I didn't realize the most appearances. Wow. Well, I have to say, Jeremy, it's always a pleasure. I love chatting with you, hanging out with you, drinking with you, whatever it is. So it's great to be back again. And happy spring, by the way.
Yeah, happy spring to you as well. And I would say the number of times you've been on, I'm going to guess it's around 5, but I was too lazy to go back through the notes and find the answer to that. I have better things to do. No offense.
No offense.
But I do. But I do know that whether as a co-guest or single solo guest, you've been on the most, and that's a tribute to you as a friend, industry guru, and your PR agency, who's very good at their job. So, congrats on that.
Yeah, actually, it's my handler more so than my PR agency, but I get it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes, very good. You're one of those. Well,
Oh, yeah.
you and I are both sports fans, and I always like to start our conversation by kind of catching up with that. You're a Boston sports fan. I'm kind of a hybrid New York, Indianapolis, Indiana fan on the pro side. You're probably getting excited about the Celtics in the playoffs, but with baseball, Red Sox and Yankees, we're probably just going to have to sit back and tolerate the Tampa Bay Rays for the rest of the season at this point.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, is baseball started?
Yeah, it has for some teams.
Well, here in Boston, we've got a hockey team called the Bruins, and
True.
They broke all records this year. Most games won, most points scored, most time in the news. It's amazing. Yeah, so we got that. We got the Celtics that start their playoffs tomorrow. Tomorrow based on our talk today, which will be whatever that is, April 15th. So It's a lot going on here, and baseball.
Yeah. I always forget about hockey. I'm not a hockey guy. I don't have a team. So, but yeah, I did recall that being the case. So, congrats to Boston, at least on 2 of the 3, and I'm sure we'll be fine as a second or third in line behind that hot team from Florida. So, it's fine. It's fine.
I'm looking forward to covering the bottom of the league again this year. It's always fun. As I always say, either you're great or you suck, but mediocrity is not a place to be. So I think we're probably the latter, not the former.
Well, it's more fun when the Yankees and Red Sox are competing. So I'll root for them to get it together. And but hey, so you it doesn't look like you've been traveling a ton since CES time period. Have you been on the road for Z-Wave stuff?
Yeah, just a little bit. As we know, there's this constant drumbeat of we're going to have a recession. We're going to have a recession, and it seems like we're going to have one. Damn it, no matter what. Even if we create it ourselves, which is kind of frustrating in a way. And so, of course, everybody's watching their OpEx, as we say, and we're no different. So the travels have been pretty much limited. I think ISC West a couple of weeks ago,
Sure.
Which, by the way, was amazingly packed. I mean, from the time it opened, and you would expect, the popular booths to be busy, but, we have Z-Wave members that are kind of all the way in the back in the innovations area, and the aisles were packed the entire time. I just read yesterday, they're now saying around 27,000 people were there.
Okay.
So whatever we want to say about the potential for downturns and such, there was no one there that was thinking that way. Everyone was
Right.
pretty optimistic.
And who do you see as the typical attendee there? Now, I know that the security industry has changed so much over the years, and IoT security solutions have become kind of a mainstream option for so many homeowners. So,
Yep.
who is attending those
It
events these days?
really ran the gamut. I mean, the obvious folks we know are friends over at alarm.com or ADT or, the other more traditional product suppliers. But um, some of the unnerving things, there was a whole section on active shooter, which
Ooh,
was, kind of had my skin crawling a little bit.
yeah.
Um, there were there was one company showing a garage door type, I guess it would be a garage door, and they had bullet marks throughout the front of the unit and with notes by each one saying this was an AR-15, from 10 feet, things like that. Um,
Mm.
pretty pretty scary, as I say. There was some really exciting stuff on the commercial side. Boston Dynamics was there again with their robots, kind of like guard dog type robots. But
Mm.
what was different there was you could order them now. These
Oh,
are no
okay.
longer concepts.
Hmm.
Stuff like that, which is kind of a little kind of eerie, if I might call it that. But overall, everyone was positive. I mean, I just kept hearing people just glad to be out, saying business has been pretty good. And in security, when you're doing anything from active shooter to guard dogs to smart home to cybersecurity, everything was covered there. Good show.
Okay, that makes sense to me now because that makes the show a lot more diverse than you're just talking home security because that's a pretty narrow category relatively speaking. But if you're like talking broadly based security,
Hmm.
cybersecurity, facility security, and all the ways that there are, whether it's from a massive, property, residential property or commercial property, that makes a lot of sense that there'd be all kinds of other. What comes to mind is when I was visiting our sponsors headquarters, Nice North
Hmm.
America,
Yep.
formerly Nortec Security. They part of their merger or acquisition, they've got this one product line that's like for gates that are in parking lots, and you like try to ram it and it will just destroy the axle on a truck or whatever. I mean, that's considered a security product, you
Oh
know?
yeah, there were definitely those gates, those one arm gates. Oh, absolutely, there were. I mean, again, covered the gamut, and I think
Hmm.
for our typical, I guess the typical listener that's going to be more focused on residential than other things, um, there are always interesting products or technologies that could be deployed in the home. For some of the, I guess. Uh, More paranoid, if you will, or more security concerned, if you will,
Yeah.
customers. There's a lot of options there,
Yeah.
even from like these safe rooms, they say from active shooters, which again, I know
Right.
I keep coming back to that, but it's like, I don't understand if there's an active shooter, then, you have this safe room, but you generally don't have opportunity to leverage any of those assets, if you will. But
I know.
just weird stuff that it becomes so relevant today.
Yeah. And I don't, it kind of makes me happy that I studied journalism and didn't become some sort of like major like CEO and some crazy company that is potentially a target
Yep,
or
gun.
something else. You know what I mean? It's like that lifestyle is not for me, where you have to concern yourself with that. It'd be nice to have a little more money in my home, but it's not for that price, right? So you and I talked a little bit about some of the things that are going on specifically with the Z-Wave Alliance prior to our conversation here on
Hmm.
the recording. And one of the things that I did publish something about when it came out was your annual ecosystem report, where you do some research on the Z-Wave Alliance and things that are going on in the IoT community. Can you recall some of the key findings? You said 55% of U.S. adults or 110 million people now own one or more smart home device. and
Yeah.
47% intend to purchase a smart home device into early 2023. So we're starting to see that become, I always think of it being more like in a 20% type of range or something like that. You are amazed at how few people, when we're in this space, we think everyone has smart home devices. Now we're actually getting to that
Mm-hmm.
over 50% number.
Yeah.
So pretty notable. What else came out of that report that was that you talk a lot about when you meet
Yeah.
up with folks?
So just a little bit of background, and first of all, anyone that would like to get the report, it is free, and you can go to the Z-Wave Alliance website, zwavealliance.org. Not being promotional here, the reality is there's some really good stuff in there that can help anybody who's reading it, whether writing about it or your business is in the smart home. The actual data and the surveys themselves are run and managed by Interpret. So we actually do use a professional company. This is what they do. We just provide the guidance for what we're looking for in terms of information. What would we like to know? And we've run this now. This is the fourth year,
Mm-hmm.
and each of the first 3 years, we've really done kind of domestic for us, U.S. based research. And so this time around, we said let's take a look into Europe. And as you know, Europe isn't a thing, so we chose three of the larger adapters for technology like this, which is UK, Germany, and France. And so we did in the research report itself. You'll be able to see how U.S. compares with the other three countries, and how the three countries, of course, compare with each other as well. And from a high level, the interesting thing is that there aren't significant differences between adoption rates and the types of products that they're looking to access. Um, so that was the first thing that was very interesting. Um, if I were to think it out loud, I think the fact that DIY seems to be a real important motivator, the do it yourself. So there's two aspects to that. The desire to be able to install products themselves. And again, when we look at the research, it says those with a few products, a couple of products that are smart home adopters are definitely focused on do it yourself. And as they grow into larger systems and start adding more and more products, it seems as though they now start looking at professional installation. And I think that for this audience, that's an important detail to understand that DIY is really a launch pad for the
Right.
kind of work that you can be getting. So DIY is in my opinion, is one of the great things to help drive our installation industry, right?
Yeah.
It's like you can go into a Lowe's or a Home Depot or something, and you could build an addition with everything that's there. But are you really going to do that, or are you just going to fix a toilet? So anyway, you get the idea.
Mm-hmm.
The other aspect, which is interesting, is the desire for interoperability. And we know that's something that Z-Wave has made as a mandatory aspect of Z-Wave
Mm-hmm.
adapters, that products you buy today or you bought 10 years ago are all going to work together. And much to our pleasant surprise, interoperability has become important for those that are looking to go more than one off. If you buy a door lock and that's all you want, it's obviously not an important aspect. So interoperability was important regardless of which country that you were looking at. So I think that's important as well. I mean, I can keep going
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
but.
So what would you, on the DIY side, do you think what's a good example of interoperable products that your average consumer interested in DIY smart home technology
So
would find?
the cool thing is that the most popular smart home product amongst all four of the regions is the smart doorbell, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't think I would have actually expected that. I would have thought like a light bulb, because that's so easy to install on your own.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so that was a very interesting detail. And again, you can see the breakdown of the different product categories. And again,
Mm-hmm.
if you're a manufacturer or you're an installer, either way, you're going to be able to look at the types of products and be able to adapt perhaps your marketing towards those customers that are looking for smart plugs and smart lighting. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a great way for customers to start touching the technology and then start looking at, okay, I'm not going to touch my in-wall devices, so I'm going to need a professional to expand from that.
What are you seeing as we talk security? What are you seeing as some of the cool products that are coming out with Z-Wave technology right now that you're able to highlight maybe in a booth or think that, kind of showcase where you're appearing at a different conference?
Yeah, let's come back to that Matter thing. I think that's an important topic. That's the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of products, there's always innovation. One of the members that been pretty creative themselves has created a door lock that's really just the latch itself. Um, and so the company is called Den.
Oh,
And
right. Yes.
instead of actually replacing the doorknob and the door lock, what you're doing is you're replacing the actual device that goes in the actual door itself. The latch itself provides the lock.
Mm.
You can imagine there's some significant engineering feats of marvel to pull that off. And they've had working prototypes for some time, but they're actually available now. And what that's helpful is when you don't have to replace the front door lock, which if aesthetics, or I should say when aesthetics really count, it's something that becomes less obvious to potential thieves, if you will, that might want to hack an automated door lock and
Okay. Yeah.
enables basically a consistent look in the house. I mean, it's stuff like that, which are not earth-shattering innovations, but from the perspective of being an installer and designers, products like that are quite cool.
No, that is very cool. I mean, I can think of my own house where my door, I don't really want to dismantle the whole latch and system that's on there, but it would be nice to make that door smart, and
Mhm.
to have it sort of discreetly smart would be really cool as well. So I get that. That's a interesting little incremental evolutionary innovation there. So I noted that you did a little profile on your site of the water dragon,
Ah,
alarm.com's water dragon
mhm.
smart leak detection system. And I feel like that's one of those other growing categories, especially within the custom integration area,
Yeah.
smart home stuff, where leak detection for a home is just so critical because you can lose so much, you can cause so much damage in a quick amount of time, not knowing that there's a pipe leaking or something going on
Yeah.
there.
Well, it actually goes well beyond that. I mean, we all know you can put water sensors in wherever you want to put them,
Sure.
whether they're battery operated or powered. And of course, Z-Wave's got all kinds of versions and different suppliers. But actually, what Alarm.com is doing with the Water Dragon, it's a device that straps on to, say, your incoming water pipe, right? And what it will do is it'll actually monitor um, the flow of the water. So, whereas a leak detector will determine when water's on the ground or where it shouldn't be, this can actually determine if, like, your toilet's running, which is pretty common problem in many homes, right? Is it just kind of runs, or if there's a drip or ongoing leak on a faucet. Those are things that leak detectors aren't going to identify. And this, again, it's a pretty expensive cost when your water's running consistently. Plus, and I'm not talking about just in terms of dollars, right? I'm talking about
Yeah.
resources. So
Yeah.
that water dragon is actually really cool, and because it's part of a system, which is hopefully a Z-Wave system, when it detects this unusual water flow, it can do a number of things. It can, if you put a shutoff valve in, it can
Mhm.
shut off your water. It can send a notification, let you know that there's a problem somewhere. So it's a pretty cool product too.
Yeah, it's one of those things that it could be going on forever, and you just don't realize it if you're
Mm-hmm.
not kind of aware of like a sound or whatever that would trigger a checkout on that. And unfortunately, your water company has got so many clients. I'm sure they can't monitor that as well.
Mm-hmm.
But using ultrasonic technology, it looks like, and it looks like that is really a great example of your long range technology as well, which we talked about prior in conversations prior to this. But I'd always kind of wondered what that best case scenario or what use case would be for Z-Wave long range. That is one of them where you can have, I guess, large homes with a lot of where something might be tucked away, and you would need a repeater to get the signal to get to where you need to. Is that I kind of clunkily explaining that how that works?
Yeah, well, long range makes sense, even in door locks, right? Because door locks are usually on the edge of the home, or on gates, which is literally on the edge of the property,
Right.
or a rural mailbox, or out by a pool house, or devices in the pool, or even to be able to monitor, any issues outside of your own property. The other thing about long range, since we jumped on that topic, is that it becomes very appropriate for MDU and hospitality installations, especially for property manager. And there are a number of companies that deploy this type of technology to property managers to be able to provide access to show an apartment, or to be able to monitor unoccupied apartments to see if the heating is still running, or if there's a water problem, or so on and so forth. So long range has been tested by one of our very well-known supporters in the field of about a mile. So if you factor in an MDU and you start throwing, how many levels of concrete, things like that, that Z-Wave's going to get through that distance. And then, of course, the ability to go over the limitation of 252 per system. Not only long range, but upwards of 4,000 devices in one system makes it pretty appropriate as well.
Yeah, so I can definitely see what you're saying about MDU, commercial applications, that sort of thing, where you're not just talking a single home, you're talking multiple apartments or condos or whatever it is, and then that long range is going to cover going to one spot. But then from that single home, yeah, I mean, I've seen Wi-Fi obviously just drop off outside my door because of glass and brick, and becomes a headache on trying to get something to operate that you thought you could, you've installed, let's say, an outdoor television on your deck, and you are watching the game, and the stream just can't kind of make it through all the time. So I could see where just that simple little step outside could be difficult with technology. But I want to definitely continue our conversation about long range and other things, but we will take a short break and get back to Mitchell Klein in just a second. Today's episode of Residential Tech Talks is brought to you by NICE, the global manufacturer of smart home security and building automation solutions. NICE is bringing together 30 years of innovation with award-winning products from ELAN, SpeakerCraft, and Panamax to create a holistic ecosystem for builders, integrators, and consumers. Learn more about how you can create one home with one solution at go.niceforyou.com/RTT. Welcome back. We're talking with Mitchell Klein, Executive Director of the Z-Wave Alliance. Mitch, we talked about long range, and I definitely do want to circle back to what we were talking about with Matter as a conversation topic. But you, in addition to long range, you've also had some progress in your open source options there as well. So can you talk about what that enables and what the motivation was for that Z-Wave open source?
It's actually a great question. So what open source means at the simplest level is that the actual source code itself for the entire Z-Wave stack, which is anything from the file level up to the application level and all points in between, is now available on a GitHub. So that, again, it's just for Z-Wave Alliance members, at least for now. You have the access to the code to be able to do pull requests, to be able to look at the code and maybe do some additional coding for it. We do have a couple of our members already have dived into that. So why does anyone care about that, right? So
right.
Now the big question is why? And the answer is multiple fold. Number one has to do with bringing in additional semiconductor supply. So right now, Z-Wave chips are available through Silicon Labs. That's it. I can guarantee by the end of the year, there will be at least one announcement of an additional semiconductor company providing their chip. So why do we care about that? Well, if you think about the problems we had in the last year or so in terms of just, limitations in supply, that gets addressed. But what it also does, it opens up opportunity for more creative applications, more use cases. There could be multi-protocol chips that can perhaps in a single chip address Z-Wave and, I don't know, Wi-Fi or something like that. So there's that innovation side of it. Then you're on the software side, whereby now when you have more people who are vested in developing the technology, that just means we're going to be able to do more things faster, address additional verticals, and address maybe new product categories that aren't currently covered, as well as be able to do any testing, troubleshooting, or expansion beyond that. So basically, it just says it's not all up to one company anymore. Now we can actually open it up, and I think that's huge.
And is there any way to know from a feedback standpoint how receptive companies have been to this opening up of the?
Yeah, actually, but if I told you, I'd have to shoot you. I mean, there are a few companies that, as a result of this, have actually attached additional internal resources to be able to do development work. So yes, already we're seeing that. I wish I could mention names, but let's just say that when we look at things like Long Range, which is a new extension of the Z-Wave platform, and we look at Matter and Bridges and other things that we could talk about, it's good to know that there's additional resources taking perhaps maybe a little different perspective, as well as adding in, more talent to be able to do it quicker.
Right, exactly. Crowdsourcing, that sort of the solution. So speaking of Matter, it obviously has a lot of potential. It's got a lot of buy-in from major manufacturers, but it was kind of one of these topics of conversation with nothing really to show for it. A lot of things going on behind the scenes, and not really from a consumer level, like much awareness of what progress has been made. And now finally starting to see some solutions out there. And Jay Basson, one of our writers, just reviewed some products that he tried out with Matter interoperability. What are you hearing on the Matter front, and what are your insights from the Z-Wave side of things?
Yeah. Okay, so just coming clean first, so we all know I work for Silicon Labs, which is of course the provider of Z-Wave chips, but Silicon Labs is also very, very active with Matter and all the other platforms.
Right.
And whether or not, whichever hat I wear, we're very supportive of Matter.
Okay.
Now, what's been interesting is at CEDIA in, when was it, October last year, September? At CEDIA, I found that even some of the press, the media had not heard of or was not aware of Matter Initiative.
John Siaka. Oh, did I just say that loud?
I didn't say that. Did I say that?
He acknowledged it to me. I'm like, what have you not been reading your own publication that you write for? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So the good news about that is that, since we're so deeply involved in this, to us, it's like an everyday conversation, but it really doesn't go very far yet. It hasn't built any real momentum yet. The version 1.0 was released as a Z-Wave perspective. Matter is doing what Z-Wave has been proselytizing for 20 years. Finally, we're very happy about that. They're proselytizing interoperability, backwards compatibility, things like that, which to us is fabulous. And if enough companies adopt the standard, and right now that's kind of up in the air, we don't know who's going to actually adopt it and deploy them in their products, but that's another topic we can come to. That the more that gets adapted, the more that a bridge or some type of enabling device that will tie existing products like Z-Wave, Zigbee, and other things that are out there to Matter means that your existing stuff continues to work, and you can now start adding in Matter products as well. So we're pretty excited about that. First products are making their way out now. The Matter technology itself is somewhat limited in terms of which product categories, and also somewhat limited in terms of the feature sets. And that's pretty standard and very appropriate in order to be able to focus and, just get the products out instead of, nothing worse than increased scope, as I'm sure a lot of CEDIA folks understand very well, keeping your scope where you started. So it's out. I think it's probably got a few years before it really hits the mass level adoption, but we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, when you say a few years, that does kind of give you a reality check. You feel like you want the new thing to be immediate, that the results are right there. But when you talk a few years, this is definitely making progress.
Yeah, there are some articles. Some manufacturers have said, hey, we can't support it. We don't know how to differentiate if everything is the same. And my first thought is, well, if that company doesn't know how to differentiate, they have bigger problems than Matter. So Matter actually enables the differentiation, not the other way around. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, to glance through the article that Jay Basson wrote for us, he mentioned Apple HomeKit, Google, Smart Things, and Amazon has some limited Matter support, so for Echo and Eero. And he was working with his Apple TV 4K Wi-Fi plus Ethernet as his test platform. So that just kind of gives you a sense. And there's this company called Aquera that he was working with as well. So there's some progress there. And it's if anybody wants to check that article out, we'll put it in our show notes. It's an interesting bit. He's a big fan of SwitchBot and did some experiments with some of that too for those blind tilting applications if you don't want to get all new shades and blinds. So interesting stuff there for sure. I always like to ask guests about tech trends that they're observing, and we've talked about several categories. What jumps out to you beyond what we've already talked about from a leak detection, water monitoring, sensing, security, that sort of stuff? What's jumping out at you as current trends that either do or do not affect Z-Wave technology?
Wow. I have a slightly different experience these days in that I'm in the semiconductor business.
Yeah.
So I could be asking you what I should be following. How are these semiconductors being deployed, right?
Right. Well, I don't know about semiconductors so much as maybe I would say the increase in lighting installation within the CI space is definitely a big one. So obviously you have to get away from your booth to be able to explore that one day at CEDIA to see just where different technologies are being displayed. And I think 3 or 4 years ago, we wouldn't have seen a single lighting fixtures company at a CEDIA Expo, and now they're cropping up quite a bit. And our friend Tom Daugherty started Lightapalooza, which was a great hit.
Pretty successful,
yeah. So that'd be one of them. And of course, we talk about health and wellness stuff that it's kind of a nebulous category that doesn't have a lot of traction, but there's definitely some interest in getting kind of the air filtration stuff figured out and integrated into that smart home category.
Well, where are you going to see that stuff? And again, back where I live these days is a lot of focus is on AI and machine learning, ML, AI/ML. And then of course, use the term multi-platform. So the AI is definitely going to be an important aspect of what you talk about health and wellness, to be able to learn from multiple sensors what's going on, what is the appropriate action to be taken if something is determined to be out of the ordinary, right? And you'll see that in AI, ML. You'll see this also in um, personal devices, things also in the automobiles, things outside the property. So as we look at being essentially residential, primarily residential, if not commercial installers, residential is going to incorporate much more than the physical home you live in. It's going to be your environment, whatever that happens to be. And that's going to be on your person. It's not just in your car, but also at work. It's going to follow you around in your devices. And I think, to me, that's mostly exciting, less scary than some might think. But I think that's the trend that I'm seeing being worked on the semi side, that hopefully you'll start seeing resulting in software and products not too distant future. You're probably 12, 18 months in, you're going to start seeing results of this type of work.
Yeah, you kind of bring to mind that company that unfortunately had some financial investment challenges, ORRO, which is
Yeah.
trying to do some learning of lighting habits, and
Yeah.
I was hopeful that down the road they would maybe be acquired by one of the major lighting control brands, and that could be incorporated somehow. It was a work in progress, like a lot of technologies, but to be able to sense you're in a room, whether, not just be a motion sensor, but something where it's kind of picking up on routines, and you don't have to have everything programmed in for your lighting control. That was an interesting application. But even something, to me, we've had some folks on
Yeah.
talking about power management. Now you're integrating solar and battery backup and that sort of thing, especially in California and Texas and those markets where
It's interesting.
power is so tough. But to be able to not have to program all of that out to what that when this happens, this switch occurs, and you have to go to battery, and or this goes to solar when the sun is out, and that type of thing. To be able to like have that in machine learning where it all just automatically happens would be kind of an interesting application.
Where it learns it and then also gives the owner the ability to make the adjustments to tweak it to their perfection. And as far as the oral thing, without revealing too much, well, the reason I would assume that Oro couldn't find someone, all the lighting companies are already working on this stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I mean, they're smart not to talk about it just yet.
Sure,
right?
sure.
But you can pretty much expect to see your favorite lighting supplier, technology providers working on these things themselves.
Okay, well, that's good. Good little insight there for
Oh,
sure.
yes.
Yeah, I'm so naive when it comes to what's going on behind the scenes, But I do appreciate getting that little heads up. I guess I would wrap up by just asking you where the next place we might see you appear. I would imagine you've probably got something before we get to CEDIA in September, but are you headed to any shows or events?
Well, I'm going to Japan, but that's really for a technology event, so I probably won't see you there.
Well, not necessarily me, but anyone else in the industry. Our friends in Japan might find you there, but
might be there in Kyoto, working on another technology called YSUN, which is focused on smart cities and automated meter infrastructure. You can see me in Mexico City, where I'll be working with the Wi-Fi folks. Wi-Fi, if you're not aware of this, Wi-Fi is very much looking at, I'll say, IoT use cases and applications, and generally focused on the low power side. So some things that, when we talk about high bandwidth requirements and Wi-Fi requiring so much power, there's some things that Wi-Fi is working on that are going to be really interesting. There's the Bluetooth member meeting coming up in Phoenix. It's very hard to be in all places like this, but all of these different technologies are very much complementary in terms of how they work together, which is why, again, I keep calling it, multi, God, I forget the terms, but, putting multiple technologies in a single device or in a single chip, because these different technologies all have their best use case, and no one technology, not Matter, not Z-Wave, not Wi-Fi, not Bluetooth, no one technology can handle all of the requirements. So leave it to some of the semi companies to be able to pull them together so that it's really not a problem. You can use Bluetooth to commission, and you can use Z-Wave perhaps do something else. So.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good place to close, to know that there is not going to be that magic formula, that magic bullet that solves everything, really. I mean, Matter is trying to do that, but there are still going to be best use cases for different protocols and technologies.
Yep. And it's going to require smart integrators to be able to deploy all these technologies. So keep learning.
Absolutely. Well, Mitch, I really appreciate your time today. It's always great to catch up, and I hope you have a great summer. And I personally will see you probably at CEDIA Expo in the fall first.
Yeah.
I'm not headed to Japan or.
Well, if you are, let me know. I mean, love to tip a few and catch up and see how our related baseball teams are faring in the league.
There you go. Absolutely. Well, looking forward to catching up in person. And thanks again. And Mitchell Klein is the executive director of the Z-Wave Alliance, the standards development organization dedicated to advancing the smart home and Z-Wave technology. You can learn more about Z-Wave at z-wavealliance.org. And that wraps up today's show, which was produced by Residential Tech Today, IPW, and Pretty Easy Podcasts. Go to prettyeasypodcast.com if you're looking to get professional production help on your own podcast at an affordable rate. If you're new to Residential Tech Talks, please subscribe to the weekly podcast wherever you watch or listen to podcasts. Also, check out all of the latest residential tech news at the magazine's website, restechtoday.com, where you can also subscribe to the print or digital magazine and to our Tuesday and Friday email newsletters. Until next time, please stay safe, stay inspired, and let us know if you have a great story to tell.
Residential Tech Talk, lighting specialist to Residential Tech Talk.
Home automation, smart device, home or smart house.